Where would you go if you were feeling unwell or wanted to refer yourself for health and wellness support? If you needed a repeat prescription or want to book a GP appointment, the answer is to go to shwh.co.uk because
this is our People podcast, telling the stories behind South Tyneside and Sunderland NHS Foundation Trust.
Hello and welcome to this episode of our People podcast. I'm Fiona Thompson, I'm our Media and PR Manager here at the Trust. Today I'm at Sunderland Eye Infirmary where I'm joined by members of our research team. So we've got Karen Davidson, Nicolle, Teasdale and Michelle Young. So I wondered if each of you could go through and introduce yourselves and what your job roles are.
Hi, I'm Karen Davidson. Technically my title is Senior Research Nurse in Ophthalmology, which means that I look after quite a small team of research nurses and report into the MDT and the consultants and whoever else is involved in our research.
I'm Michelle Young, I'm a research nurse and my job is to work with the patients and the sponsors to try and deliver the research here at Sunderland Eye Infirmary.
And finally,
I'm Nicolle Teasdale and I am an ophthalmic photographer, so technically I'm part of the photography team at Sunderland Eye Infirmary, but I'm the research lead, so I work up in the research department with the rest of the research team.
Fantastic stuff. So you are three members of the team, but who else is involved in terms of professions and departments here at the Eye Hospital?
Okay, so out of there were two nurses here, so there's 5 nurses altogether. We've got 3 nurses who prefer not to be in the podcast, but we'd like to just mention the fact that we love working with them, and that we're all a great team. We have a photographer, we have optometry, who we really rely on, pharmacy for our drug studies.
Because we've got a pharmacy downstairs, we've got a little place that our patients can go and get their scripts and things, but members of the team are involved as well.
We also have our research pharmacist who comes across between the 3 sites. We have data manager,
We've got
administrator.
Oh, we can't leave admin support out, otherwise the wheels would fall off.
And obviously our research, what we call PIs, principal investigators, but our research consultants, basically.
All the doctors that are involved, and
registrars.
And a lot of our trials rely on staff outside of the research department, like the macular unit help us a lot.
Cataract treatment centre,
delivering the injections, and so there's a lot of people involved.
So it really is a team.
Everybody, really, if you think about it.
You can't do anything without everybody being there.
And also our, let me get this right, Director of Research is Nicolle Varma, who's one of our consultants, and she's based here. And
yes, that's correct.
She has, along with one of our others, that has done a research podcast, so that can be found in our previous episodes.
Yeah.
So, Karen, what's your background? How did you come into this role, and what kind of drew you into research?
I qualified in 2006, so I was 36 when I qualified. Spent 4 years on a medical ward, and then I went to work in research at the clinical research facility at Newcastle, and then from there I was the lead for the respiratory team in research at Newcastle, and then I moved across to Sunderland just for a change, easier commute, nice smaller hospital, and then after 6 years mainly in cardiology, I fancied another change. I came across to eyes because I'd heard a lot of nice things about the eye hospital, never been, so here I am.
And here you are. And so did you say that you came into your healthcare career later, or did you have a slightly different health career beforehand?
I started my nurse training when I was 33, so prior to that I did a lot of things, to be honest. I trained as a teacher. Initially I did a degree in music, which is completely irrelevant to this.
I don't know, I'm sure it comes in useful.
Then I worked as a nanny, then I had retail jobs, I was a supervisor at Boots, I worked in offices, I worked for the Prescription Pricing Authority, and I'd always wanted to be a nurse, and it's the financial side of things. I had to wait until I was in a position to be able to afford to do the training, so I was 33 when I started my training.
Yeah. But I suppose you bring lots of experience to the role that you wouldn't have had otherwise, and a maturity.
I think so. Yeah, I think it's important, and I think in research as well. I've had quite a long background in lots of different areas. So by the time I've got to the eye infirmary, although I'll admit I'm not an expert in eyes by any means and I'm still learning, the research background I'm confident in.
Brilliant stuff. Oh, that's fine. Sorry, I'm super nosy, so I always want to know what people have done. Michelle, tell us about your career so far.
So I qualified in 2003. I went straight into nursing from college. When I qualified, I trained at Mid-Yorkshire hospitals, but then worked at Newcastle for a couple of years. And then I went travelling, went and worked in Australia for a year. And then after that, I went back to Yorkshire, did a lot of agency sort of bank work, and then got a contract at Leeds for a year, and then moved back to the North East, and I've worked here since 2010. So this is my longest job by far. Yeah.
And Nicolle, what about you?
I started my first job. I started in '97, I think it was, in a plastics and maxillofacial in Glasgow. So it was kind of general medical photography. I worked there for a couple of years, and I got a job at Darlington Memorial Hospital where they did ophthalmology. And I absolutely loved ophthalmology, so when a job came up at the Eye Infirmary, I went for that, and I've been here nearly 20 years now.
So did you do a degree that kind of got you ready for this kind of thing, or did you train on the job?
I did. I went to college to start with, and I did an HND in photography, and then once I got the first job in Glasgow, I started they don't do it the same way now, but it was a conversion course to change my HND into a BSc I've got. So, but that took kind of 3 years to go through that.
Brilliant. Oh, thank you for that. And would each of you mind tell us a little bit about your what your role in research involves, and your kind of, I imagine there's not an average day, but what kind of responsibilities you each have?
I think it's pretty much like what Michelle said. The main thing is to look after the patient. So you've got your sponsors who design the studies and have expectations of us. You've got consultants who obviously have the overall care of the patient, and we are very much that kind of interface where we're the ones that take them around the department, drop them off at optometry, take them to Nicolle in photography, take them to get their injections, make sure they get their taxis, make sure they come in at the right times on the right days. If they've got any problems, we report those back. So I would say that's the basics.
It's a lot of coordinating between making sure that everybody's adhering to the protocol, the sponsor, to get obviously the best data, isn't it? Just to get the highest quality data so that the sponsors can obviously do their own analysis. And there's lots more admin to the role than I thought there would be.
But that means everything just runs smoothly.
Exactly, yeah. Everybody's trained. You have to make sure that you're sending off all the training slides, making sure that everybody's on the delegation logs. It's just the general running of the study, isn't it, for the sponsors.
And Nicolle, when it comes to your department, do you just make sure everybody's doing the right thing in the team? How does it work?
For the photographers, most of the trials will have a set protocol, so they'll tell you what imaging to take, what camera to use, what views to use, timings for certain things, and before you can be part of the clinical trial you have to capture the images on a kind of a guinea pig patient. And they get submitted to the reading centres, and the reading centre will say whether or not that's okay and whether you've been accepted. But they won't let you practice on any of the patients or take any of the patients for the trials unless you have the certifications.
Oh. So somebody steps forward to help us out with that. When it comes to like a patient, you kind of put them through the process.
We have, because we work out of the photography department, we'll go, a lot of the times you don't need a patient with pathology, so we can just kind of take pictures of each other. But we do fluorescein angiography, where we inject the patient with the dye and you photograph it as it goes through and shows the circulation at the back of the eye. So to get certification for that, we need to have patients who are having that done for clinical purposes, so we have to ask their permission and get consent forms for them to say that it's okay to take the images. Everything's anonymised before it's sent off.
And I guess that just proves we know what we're doing here.
Yeah.
Everything's above.
So we have to prove that we're capable of taking the photographs as they say on the protocol, and that we can anonymise them and relabel them the way they should be labelled for the trial, because they've all got specific different ways, and that we can use, the reading centres have portals that we upload to, and I think we've got about 5, 6, 7 different reading centres that we kind of upload to at the minute, and they're all different. So it's
there's a lot going on.
There is.
And so you've mentioned sponsors there as well. So how would you describe a sponsor for somebody from outside the NHS or research? How would you sum up what a sponsor is?
They're basically the people who pay, effectively. They might be the pharmaceutical company themselves, or sometimes we have academically sponsored studies, sponsored by universities. We sponsor studies ourselves within this trust. Which tends to be on the low risk side, tends to be the bigger hospital trusts that sponsor the bigger risk studies. But we've had quite a lot of what we call IITs, which is investigator-led treatments and things within this trust, which Michelle's obviously been here longer than I have, so knows a bit more about those in particular. So yeah, that's basically what. So we're responsible not just to the trust and the trust policies and guidelines and everything, but also to them. So it's like a multi-tiered thing. We're responsible to everybody.
There's a lot of people to make sure.
Lots of people to report into, yeah.
And I guess that just means that everything's as it should be, and checked and double checked, and
and that we do what we're supposed to do at the visits. Because I didn't mention we do, although we're showing people around and moving them about, we do nursing skills as well. We have
we do. We've got like ECGs, blood taking, and
blood spinning and sampling, and that kind of thing.
It sounds so varied.
It is really varied, and each study has got its own sort of assessments that are required specific to that study. So it's not a kind of one size fits all job.
Is it quite hard to kind of keep up with the rules and regulations of that study? Or are they all pretty similar? Or do you need to remember?
And the change as well, you get lots of amendments to studies as well. So as the study goes on, the sponsor might change, slightly tweak how they do it, and you've got to be sort of very familiar. So I think we have our roles as study coordinators as well. So I'll be a coordinator for a study, and I'll be able to kind of lead on that. So it takes a lot to get to know every element of it.
So why don't you tell us about some of the studies we've previously done? I don't know whether you can explain what kind of impact you think they've had on our treatments and procedures and patient care, and really, have they worked and made a difference?
I mean, we've had a lot of commercial studies that have kind of got products to market, really. So I've been involved in studies where, from the setup, and now I see it actually being delivered as part of the standard of care. We've got lots of observational studies for a lot of retinal based diseases, big interventional trials. We've had cataract studies, glaucoma studies, macular holes, all sorts of different retinal, lots and lots of different conditions.
What was the one you mentioned there, Karen?
Gene therapy.
Gene therapy, yes, I know a little bit about gene therapy, which is just, the whole point of these things is to make sure that people have better experiences as patients, but also better outcomes. And I know some of our studies are looking about how you predict outcomes, and really trying to make a difference to people across the world, not just here in our hospital. So I guess you must know that when you're doing these studies, somebody somewhere is going to have a benefit, not necessarily here, but on the other side of the world.
Yeah, and in some studies, they may never get to that point, but it's just proving or disproving that idea, isn't it? And sometimes it's just proving that actually what you're doing already is the best thing. It's interesting.
So what active things do we have on at the moment? What studies are we working on that you can tell us about? Even if it's just a little bit general, because I know sometimes things are quite busy.
We've got to be quite general, but so you have your port.
Yeah, so there's a port delivery system that it's just a different way of giving the treatment that we currently give. There's all sorts of different sort of anti-VEGF type studies, so that's how you treat conditions like wet macular degeneration and diabetic macular edema, geographic atrophy, that kind of thing.
We're branching out a little bit. We're trying to branch out into other specialties as well as just the retina.
We've got a lot of retinal studies, but exactly. We've got
thyroid eye disease as a new sort of area for us that we're just in the process. I think we're being site selected to get one study. Site selected just means sponsor have had a look at you and what you've said and like you and would like to run the study at your site. So we've got one we're site selected for, and there's lots of those potentially in the pipeline that we're waiting to hear about. But we're always trying to accommodate all, not just just a few specialities, but a lot of specialities within the eye infirmary. We'd like to be able to offer them
conditions that you can get. It's not just the back of the eye. So it's just being able to make sure that you can deliver that particular research here, because obviously we're a standalone hospital, and some conditions are a little bit sort of, that they require other specialities to get involved. It's not always easy to do,
So does that mean you work with other teams from different hospitals or different trusts to help build that bigger picture, or is it just, does it tend to be very specific here?
Not usually. Sponsors will have sites, but we won't communicate with each other. We'll communicate with sponsor and send our data back to them. Or sometimes we've had standalone studies where we've had what we call a chief investigator led study, which might be a consultant here who is just doing it at one site, just asking a question at one site. We don't tend, and we have regular regional meetings and things, but we don't tend to work together or share.
I was going to say, surely if you're sharing details, that could have an impact on the overall outcome of the study, so you need to kind of keep your data and things to yourself.
Keep your data and it goes into the central anonymised pot, which is...
Are the sponsors, whoever's leading these trials, quite good at feeding back the outcomes as well? Do you get like a little bit of a report at the end to say, actually...
Yeah, it can take a few years. But we've recently had a study that is sort of, we've got a report on that we're able to share with previous patients and things. We do eventually get the results, and sometimes you just see it anyway because you see that product in use. So it kind of works.
Do patients get a little bit of feedback as well? So for example, with the Colo Detect trial, which we've done a podcast before and lots of work around, I know that there's a kind of fact sheet that's been sent to the patients to take back. Do you kind of get those, and do you help send those out to patients so that they know the difference it helped make?
Yeah, I've had that in the past where sponsors have sent information that we give to patients.
And so you've mentioned a few things that we've already worked on. What kind of things would we like to work on? What's on the wish list of things you would like to do? And Nicolle, as well as your team, like I don't know how you get involved in kind of in that side of things, or you just take studies as they come.
I just take them.
You just take them as they come.
So we've always had a really healthy amount of studies coming in anyway, without sort of looking for other things.
We're led by the consultants, really, aren't we? We have consultants that are interested in a specific area. Say we wanted to develop glaucoma, which we don't really have anything currently.
There's not an awful lot of glaucoma studies nationally. We've looked at that particular area. So sort of retinal studies tend to be the sort of biggest area of it's just nice to have a mix, isn't it? It's nice to have a mix of studies and a mix of
observational and
interventional.
Something that's not risky and something that is slightly more it's just having a variety. Busy days,
it's having stuff that ticks away in the background on days where you're not delivering complex.
But you mentioned there's not many about glaucoma, but presumably we're always searching around and shopping around for studies that we know that we can take part of and make a difference.
We look, and we have access to there's a portfolio of studies that's national that we can check to see what's going on if we wonder what's going on.
A lot of them come directly to the PI, to the consultant anyway, so a lot of the time we don't have to go looking.
No. Now, a lot of these podcasts have been kind of geared up towards talking about our new hospital because we love to talk about it. How have you all been involved in your teams in helping develop plans, and what will the new site mean to the future of research and your teams?
Well, we have been quite involved, really. We go to the new build meetings, which is now Kerry, and they're monthly, and we have we have the plans, we know what we're looking at. We're busy trying to condense, going from a more paper heavy, because research is very paper heavy. We're going to have a lot less space for things like files and camber units and that kind of thing. But we're going to have more space for things like our lab, which currently we haven't got a centrifuge in a proper lab, and we haven't got the freezers in a proper lab, and everything's built in there.
Yeah, the way that this hospital is, it's not always the patient journey's not always the best. We've got rooms upstairs, and then we have to take the patients downstairs to photography, back upstairs. And I think every part of the new build plans has been the patient at the front, sort of planning that journey, and that will make a massive difference for us in research, won't it? And also, we're kind of stuck 2 floors up in offices that people don't see. You don't feel like you're we're quite isolated. Yeah, we are, and I think sometimes we sort of get, the research team are just stuck upstairs.
So you have your own dedicated office and space for all your kit. So where's that going to be in the building? Do you know?
First floor.
First floor. So you're kind of right in the
middle of it. We're going to have 2 clinic rooms.
We can't hide away anywhere.
So it's going to be.
So you have specific clinic rooms for research activities.
There's one now, but it's got no windows, and I don't know what the new ones are going to be like in terms of windows, but they're going to be.
We've got to have everything measured out as well. So our commercial sponsors will ask for it to be certified and everything. It has to be in the right place. So we've got a couple of clinic rooms that we can use in the new build, which means we're not fighting for one room, which is great as well.
And it might or might not have windows, but it'll certainly be the right temperature and the right lighting, and the right space.
Exactly, it'll be all of those things that it isn't necessarily.
Because photography is a big.
I was going to say photography's
got a lot of space.
So your photography space here is not a bad size room, but there's a lot of going in within that space, isn't it? You've maybe got is it 2 or 3 different stations where people can have the photographs taken?
Downstairs we've got 3 OCT machines, we've got a slit lamp, we've got an anterior camera which photographs the cornea, we've got another pentacam which photographs the cornea, and a specular microscope for the cornea. And then upstairs we've got cameras as well. We've got a fundus camera which takes colour photographs of the back of the eye. That's upstairs in a different room, so at the minute we're kind of spread out, so when I get a patient I'll take them for colour fundus upstairs, and then I have to take them downstairs. So hopefully, I think the idea is with the new build we've got 2 floors, and we've got a photography department on both floors which have very similar equipment in. So we'll be able to stay with the research patients on the same floor, and they'll get everything done on the same floor.
Yeah, and it goes back to what you were saying, Michelle, about just the patient experience and journey, not having to go from one place to the other to be passed from pillar to post, when you can actually get pretty much everything you need within that space, or not too far away.
Yeah. I mean, with us having the cameras, we've got some upstairs and some downstairs, and sometimes the cameras have to be done in a certain order. You'll have some where they're done undilated, some they need to be dilated. So sometimes you've had patients where we've had to take them upstairs for photographs, downstairs for photographs, and then back upstairs again.
Yeah, I imagine.
It's not ideal, especially when the pad drops in their eyes and you're walking about, it's not.
That's going to make a massive difference, isn't it?
Yeah.
And I really want to do a special one about your team full stop, because I think it's an absolutely fascinating place. I have been really keen to do that. But the equipment that you use as part of research, does it have any different sections to it? How does it work? Is there specific machines used for research?
It's the cameras that we've got down in photography are usually just what we get asked for. So we've got most trials that we take part in will have an OCT which shows the fluid at the back of the eye. So that's kind of how they monitor how the most of the drugs are working. It kind of monitors what the fluids. But we also do the fluorescein angiography, which will show kind of leakage, and it'll show damage to the vessels. And then you've got OCTAs, which is an OCT but in kind of OCT angiography that shows the vessels and how the blood flows through the vessels. So all of the cameras that we use, or most of the cameras that we use, are owned by the trust, and we use them for patients. But then we do have certain trials where they've given us we've had one where they needed a specific kind of OCTA machine, so they give us the camera, and we keep that in the photography department. And sometimes we can use it with the patients, other times we can't. It's just used for the clinical trial. And we've had specular microscope, which is kind of a mini fields test just for the very centre of the vision. So we've got 2 of those on loan at the minute for 2 different trials that we're taking part in. And we've got there's a trial coming up, which is a ptosis trial, and we're getting equipment for that.
Oh, so what does that involve?
We don't know yet.
Oh, right, okay, that's still a surprise yet to be revealed.
But I know we're getting equipment for it.
And what difference will it make to you in your everyday role, being in a building that's a bit different to this one, that'll be fit for purpose and fit for the future? Because we do love this building, but it is a bit, it's beyond this.
I think it'll be totally amazing. I think the patients will be completely
wowed by
it, although a bit lost probably when they first get there. It'll just be having the space, it'll be just having everything new and shiny, everything not breaking down all the time, and other things that we like experience. I just think it'll be totally amazing, and to have 2 rooms, because I know when it gets busy, the nurses have said that, you know, in the past it's been a real juggle. You know, you move your patient out and then we'll do it, and then move your patient in, and it's kind
it must be frustrating, because really you just want to be able to get on with your role, don't you?
And we work, you know, optometry can be in one room while the nurses are in the other room. It's just
that's the thing, because it's in an ideal world would have the patients equally spaced out over the week, but you've got to kind of match up to a clinician. You don't, you know, then they all kind of, you get a bit of a bottleneck effect, don't you? So I think it'll just flow so much better, and it'll just feel like
it's going to be.
It's just exciting, isn't it?
It is exciting.
Paperlight's going to be a challenge.
When you're so used to writing things down and
we're not a Paperlight. You know, research isn't a Paperlight speciality, but we're practicing now to get into our 4-chamber units that we've got. So it's got to be. That's all we have.
Starting to declutter a little bit now, just in readiness. But it will be good.
Nicolle, what about your team? What difference will it make to you to be in this new spaces?
It's going to be with the photography team, it's going to be totally different, because we'll be split into 2 different teams. So I don't think we've got, Jade will confirm when you do this, but I don't think we've got a set way to work yet, whether we'll have 2 set teams or whether it'll be kind of, we'll get moved around so we still work together. So just because we're spread over 2 floors, it's going to be very different.
They are, but not too far away from each other. So
no, they're not too far.
Still be not too far. And do you think it'll also help us bring new members of the team in as well? Because it's going to be a brand new building. Do you think that's going to be a good thing if you're looking to, bring in new research members? Is this going to be a good thing for them a good place for them to be based?
The photography team are quite involved with the research anyway, because most of the trials you need more than 1 photographer to be certified. So I'll get certified for everything, but then we always have at least 1 other person, and the more you can get, the better. It kind of for holidays and days off, it just makes it a lot easier for the nurses if I go on a 2-week holiday, that they've then got people who are certified and who will be there, because there's a chance if it's in the summer holidays, one of the others would be off as well. So they're all very keen, and they're all interested in research.
So they've all got a hand in it anyway.
Yeah.
Very good. And just to round up, I wondered if you could tell me a little bit about what you enjoy most about working in research, and how you think other people can get involved in, whether they're colleagues or I know patients, we reach out to them or they get invited. What do you love most about your job?
For me, it's always been patients and all the specialities that I've worked in. But it is quite an admin-heavy job. So it isn't an all-day patient-facing role. It never is. But what you tend to get is long-term relationships with patients that you get to know very well. So in that way, it's more like a specialist nurse role, because you see the same people over and over again. Rather than having you might get a quick consent to an observational study where you only meet the patient really for 5 minutes, and you've only spoken to them on the phone, and then you don't have anything else to do with them. But usually it's that long term.
You build up that rapport. A lot of our interventional trials require the patients to come in monthly, and you do a lot of assessments in that one session. So you do get to know the patients really well. But for me, it's the variety of the job. It's never boring. There's always something to learn, and even with the admin side, you're constantly learning, aren't you? To sort of adapt
Because every time you get a new protocol,
Exactly,
it's
you've
got
got to
something
learn
in
it
it
all
that you
over
think
again.
you've got to look up and you don't know what.
It's I've never been bored being in research, because you just it's
Keeps you on your toes.
exactly what it's about, isn't it?
Yeah.
It's developing evidence all the time, so it never stays still.
You must have to be very thorough
Yes.
and good at cataloguing and
It's very, yes.
yeah.
The coordinator role is definitely very thorough. You've got
could
to make
say
sure that everybody
nitpicky,
needs to.
but in a nice way.
Yeah.
An eye for detail.
Yeah, it's an eye for detail, yeah.
Because if you don't, then you run into, deviations from protocol, and there's a lot of admin that goes with that. So you're best to just do it right.
Do it correct the first time round.
Yeah.
Wasting your patient's time as well, in a
Yeah,
way. If you
yeah.
bring them in and do it half-heartedly, and they've given their time and their effort, and you've kind of
But
really
I mean,
respected that. It's
and in relation to getting patients involved, we do often find the patients themselves, because it's not always a self-referral type study. If it is, then that's great, but a lot of the time the protocols, the inclusion and exclusion, are quite tricky to find the right patients, so we kind of
Keep an eye out for people.
exactly, and the doctors will refer, and the optometrists and photographers, and
You also need patients who can kind of do the test as well, because we've had it in the past where you've got patients who are really keen, but they can't tolerate the photography. Is usually quite a lengthy procedure, and they'll go from one camera to another camera, and there's different lights, and
It's a bit
sometimes,
overwhelming.
and sometimes you'll just get patients who it's just too much for them, but they always want to try their hardest. And
Yeah, I think the patients are very kind in that way, and they,
Yeah.
I know we explain things really thoroughly to them, and there's an ethical background to everything.
It can get quite difficult as well, because we'll take patients on, and some of the trials will be 2-3 years long, so you'll take a patient on who's already quite elderly, and then as they get older, it's a lot of imaging. It can be quite taxing sometimes for them. So
It must be quite difficult to.
it is, because usually, like you say, you've built up a relationship with the patients, and it's hard when they start to kind of
You
struggle
see them
with
in real
it.
terms. And what do you love most about the job, or what do you find the biggest challenge about the job, I guess?
getting the photography.
Yeah, because it's no, absolutely, because it's got to be accurate, hasn't it?
It is. All of the trials, they all have their own protocols, and there's kind of all the parameters of the scans that we do, so it's every single trial. And we've done this before, where we try to get kind of certifications through quite quickly, and because they all have different parameters, you need different patients, and it takes a long time. So it's with work, and the nurses will have, we've got five nurses, I think? And they take on trials each, so they each have kind of so many trials. But with the photography, I'm responsible for the photography for all of them, and sometimes it can get quite confusing, because the trials will be quite similar but not exact, so I have to make sure
It's an eye for detail, isn't it?
It is. It's making sure every patient I know, rather than thinking, I know what I'm doing with
it's
this
refreshing
protocol.
yourself all the time.
Every single patient you have to double check, is it this one, is this the scan? And a lot of the time, as you get into it, with the OCTs, it will be a follow-up scan, but sometimes you'll follow up certain scans and sometimes others, and it's just, it's a lot.
What do you love most about it? What do you like about the job?
That's part of it, actually. I think because I can't just switch off, I do have to actually concentrate on everything that I'm doing, but I would say the patients. I get a lot of time with the patients, because photography downstairs is quite a fast-moving department, so the patients are in and out, whereas with the research, sometimes they'll be with me for over an hour, and you do chat to them and you get to know them, and that's absolutely my favourite part. I love that.
Well, that's a lovely way to finish up. Thank you so much to you all for joining us. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks for joining us for this episode of our People podcast. We hope you enjoyed it, and check out our other stories. Hit subscribe to keep up to date with the latest, and catch up with what we've been up to on our Twitter, Facebook and Instagram pages. Just search for our name.